These are all the ranks within the Imperial military. The Imperial ranking system was primarily divided into three major branches: the Imperial Army, the Imperial Navy, and the Imperial Security Bureau, or the ISB. While there are overlapping responsibilities and a unified chain of command ultimately leading to the Emperor, each branch possessed its own distinct set of insignia and progression of ranks tailored to its specific operational needs. The Imperial Army was responsible for ground operations, planetary garrisons, and occupational forces, and infantry combat. Its ranks reflect a focus on land-based unit command, often leading to roles as planetary governors or regional commanders. Army forces were typically deployed to secure conquered territories, suppress local insurrections, and maintain the Empire's presence on countless worlds. The Imperial Navy commanded the vast fleets of Star Destroyers and other capital ships, controlling space lanes, performing blockades, deploying forces across the galaxy, and engaging enemy fleets. Its ranks denote levels of ship command, squadron leadership, and ultimately grand fleet strategy. Naval officers often began their careers at the Imperial Naval Academy, specializing in ship operations, weapon systems, or starfighter command. Their role was paramount in projecting Imperial powers across interstellar distances. The ISB, or the Imperial Security Bureau, a persuasive intelligence and internal security organization, operated largely outside the standard military hierarchy with its own specialized ranks. The ISB's mandate was internal surveillance, counterintelligence, and the suppression of dissent, and enforcing ideological conformity to Imperial doctrine. While ISB personnel might wear uniforms similar to military officers, their authority was often superseded that of standard military command when their jurisdiction overlapped, creating a powerful, often feared presence throughout the Empire. At the very base of the Imperial military structure were the enlisted personnel, the vast numbers of individuals who performed the daily duties and frontline operations that maintained Imperial order. These individuals, while conscripted or voluntarily recruited, underwent rigorous or often brutal training to break down individuality and instill absolute obedience. The most iconic of these is the Stormtrooper. A standard Stormtrooper was a basic infantry soldier trained for rapid deployment, shock tactics, riot control, and maintaining order in occupied territories. They were often issued with a standard E11 blaster rifle, thermal detonators, and distinctive white plastoid armor designed to intimidate and protect. Stormtroopers operated in squads, platoons, and companies, forming the visible face of Imperial power across countless worlds. Despite their formidable appearance, their strength lay in their numbers and their unwavering adherence to command rather than individual initiative. While generally not holding formal officer ranks, various specialized stormtroopers existed, such as shore troopers for coastal defense, snow troopers for Arctic environments, scout troopers for reconnaissance and sniping, or highly elite death troopers attached to high-ranking Imperial commanders for specialized security and combat operations. Regardless of their specialization, they were all fundamentally troopers within the Corps, operating under the command of NCOs and officers. Above the general enlisted personnel were the non-commissioned officers, or the NCOs. These individuals served as the vital link between the rank and file and the commissioned officers. They were typically highly experienced soldiers or sailors responsible for direct supervision, hands-on training, and maintaining discipline across the enlisted ranks. NCOs were the backbone of any Imperial unit, possessing practical knowledge gained from years of field service. A corporal was typically the lowest NCO rank, often leading a small fire team or squad of 5 to 10 personnel. Their authority was highly localized, focused on immediate tactical execution, issuing direct orders, and ensuring the well-being and combat readiness for their small unit during patrols, engagements, or occupation duties. They were the first in line of leadership on the battlefield. A sergeant commanded larger squads or led specialized teams, typically comprising 10 to 20 individuals. Sergeants were responsible for more complex tactical leadership, such as setting up ambushes, leading breaching operations, or coordinating defensive positions. Beyond direct combat, they managed equipment manifest, ensuring operational readiness, and were instrumental in the ongoing training and discipline of new recruits. Their experience made them invaluable in translating officer commands into practical action. Further up the NCO ladder, more senior NCO ranks like Staff Sergeant or Master Sergeant might exist within larger Imperial units. These were often long-serving, highly experienced NCOs who served in administrative roles, training academies, or as key advisors to commissioned officers. A Master Sergeant, for example, might serve as a company's chief NCO, responsible for overall welfare and discipline of all enlisted personnel within that company, possessing decades of practical field knowledge that officers often relied upon. Moving into the commissioned officer ranks, individuals began to hold direct command authority over large numbers of personnel and more significant Imperial assets. Entry into the officer corps typically involved rigorous academic and physical training at prestigious Imperial academies, where cadets were instilled with Imperial ideology and discipline in the arts of command and strategy. In the Imperial Navy, the lowest commissioned officer rank was ensign. Ensigns were typically assigned to entry-level bridge duties or starships, assisting on navigation, communications, or tactical systems under direct supervision. There were officers in training, learning the complexities of ship operations and gaining initial exposure to command procedures. Their roles were often probationary, requiring them to demonstrate competence and loyalty before advancing. The equivalent in the Imperial Army would be a second lieutenant. A second lieutenant commanded a platoon, a unit typically comprising around 30 to 40 soldiers. Their duties involved leading patrols, securing objectives, establishing basic logistical plans for the unit, and managing the morale and combat readiness of their troops in direct combat situations. They relied heavily on the experience of their NCOs. The rank of lieutenant existed in both the Army and the Navy, signifying a more experienced junior officer. In the Imperial Army, a lieutenant might command a larger platoon or serve as an executive officer for a company, assisting the captain with daily operations, planning, and personnel management. They were responsible for more complex tactical planning, leading assaults, or coordinating defensive operations with other units. In the Imperial Navy, a lieutenant held significant bridge responsibilities, perhaps overseeing a specific department like weapons control, sensors, or flight operations on a capital ship. They could also command smaller starships like corvettes, gunboats, or provide command for squadrons or shuttles of transport. They were key in translating broader strategic goals into precise tactical execution at the unit or ship level. Finally, within the junior officer tier was the captain. This was a pivotal rank denoting considerable responsibility and often the first major independent command. An Imperial Army captain would typically command a company, a significant ground force comprising several platoons, numbering around 100 to 200 troopers. They were responsible for battle plans at a company level, managing logistics, leading significant ground engagements, and coordinating with potential air or armored support. In the Imperial Navy, a captain was often the commanding officer of a capital ship, such as a frigate, a light cruiser, most notably the Imperial 1 or Imperial 2 class Star Destroyer. Their authority extended over the entire vessel, its thousands of crew members, its starfighter complement, and the assigned mission. They made critical decisions on patrols, blockades, planetary bombardments, pursuit of enemy vessels, and engagement within larger fleets, embodying the direction and application of Imperial naval power. As officers ascended through these ranks, their responsibilities shifted from tactical execution to a broader operational and strategic planning, commanding increasingly larger formations and more valuable Imperial assets. These ranks required not just competence, but a demonstrated capacity for leadership, logistics, and independent strategic thinking. The rank of Major was a significant step up within the Imperial Army. A Major typically commanded a battalion, a large group force comprised multiple companies, numbering into the hundreds or even thousands of soldiers. Majors were responsible for the strategic deployment of ground forces with a specific subsector or region, managing complex logistics for their units and leading large-scale planetary occupations or offensive campaigns against entrenched resistance. They often coordinated with naval bombardments or air support. In the Imperial Navy, the equivalent rank was a commander. A naval commander often served as the executive officer of a larger capital ship, such as a super Star Destroyer, serving as the second in command responsible for the day-to-day operations, crew discipline, and readiness of the vessel. They could also command a small task force of multiple smaller capital ships, cruisers and frigates, or lead an entire starfighter comprised of multiple squadrons. Their role involved coordinating offensive and defensive operations within a large fleet or task force. The rank of colonel was a highly senior position within the Imperial Army. A colonel typically commanded a regiment, an assembly of multiple battalions, potentially numbering in the thousands to tens of thousands of ground troopers. Colonels were often in charge of major Imperial garrisons on key worlds, coordinating security forces with entire planets or large sectors, and spearheading significant, sustained offensive campaigns. They were often the highest ranking army officer on a specific planet or major military base, holding vast authority over terrestrial forces and resources. Corresponding to colonel in the Navy was the Commodore. A Commodore commanded a small battle group or squadron of Star Destroyers, typically comprising 2 to 5 capital ships. Operating at a sectorial strategic level, Commodores coordinated complex fleet movements, established regional blockades of entire star systems, and directed naval power projection to enforce Imperial law across multi-system regions. They were the initial level of fleet commander responsible responsible for broad naval objectives beyond the scope of a single ship. This tier of senior officers marked the transition from leading tactical units to managing strategic assets, making decisions that impacted entire systems or large planetary regions. At the apex of the standard military and naval hierarchies were the general and admiral ranks, representing the pinnacle of operational and strategic command within their respective branches. These individuals were entrusted with the fate of entire campaigns and the lives of millions. An Imperial general was a senior army officer commanding an entire corps or even an army group, potentially encompassing tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of ground troops. Generals were responsible for orchestrating large-scale planetary invasions, managing extensive occupational forces across multiple worlds, and conducting strategic ground campaigns that could secure or devastate entire star systems. Their authority was vast, involving logistical chains that spanned numerous planets and complex coordination with naval forces. The equivalent in the Imperial Navy was Admiral. An Imperial Admiral commanded a full fleet of Star Destroyers and numerous support vessels, often dozens of capital ships strong. Admirals were responsible for interstellar control, directing massive space battles, coordinating with army elements or planetary invasions, and enforcing Imperial law across vast and critical sectors. Their strategic decisions could dictate the flow of trade, the security of Imperial supply lines, and the ultimate subjugation of destruction of entire star systems. Beyond the military, the Empire also established ranks that combined military authority with political governance, reflecting the Empire's totalitarian nature. The most prominent of these was the Grand Moff. A Grand Moff was a sector governor, personally appointed by the Emperor, who wielded supreme military and civil authority over an entire sector of the galaxy. This immense power included control over local planetary governments, vast natural resources, and full military might of the Imperial Army and Navy within their designated sector. Grand Moffs operated with near autonomy within their territories, often acting as a miniature emperor, embodying the Empire's fusion of military might and ruthless political oppression. They could override the decisions of even generals and admirals within their jurisdiction when matters of sectoral control were concerned. And then the rarest and most formidable rank within the Imperial Navy, the Grand Admiral. This rank was bestowed only upon individuals of truly unparalleled strategic genius, unwavering loyalty, and consistent record of decisive victories. Grand Admirals commanded entire fleets, often directing critical military campaigns that could reshape the galactic landscape. They operated within an immense degree of autonomy, directly overseeing sensitive and unique missions, wielding unparalleled authority over vast naval forces, answering directly to the Emperor himself. The strategic acumen was considered so exceptional that they could often achieve victory where conventional tactics had failed. Within the Imperial Security Bureau was a specific military ranks that may be held as its personnel who were seconded by the Army or Navy. Its internal structure featured ranks like Agent, Supervisor, Chief, and the Ultimate Director. An ISB Director held vast authority over intelligence gathering, counterinsurgency operations, loyalty checks, and the brutal suppression of dissent across multiple sectors. ISB personnel often operated with judicial and executive powers that bypassed standard military protocol, conducting arrests, interrogations, and summary executions. They were the Empire's internal police, secret service, or ideological enforcers, a persuasive and feared presence dedicated to rooting out any threat to Imperial authority, no matter how small. These specialized roles underscore the Empire's multi-faced approach to control, blending overt military might with persuasive intelligence, political dominance, and ideological enforcement. Next, we have the Inquisitors. This was a specialized group of Force-sensitive individuals trained by Darth Vader and dedicated to hunting down the last remnants of the Jedi Order and any other Force-sensitive who might oppose a threat to the Empire. They operated outside the regular military chain of command, often with implied or implicit authority over regional commanders with their missions required it. While they had no specific military ranks, their power came from their direct connection to Vader and the Emperor, their vast mastery of the dark side, and their specialized combat training. Their role was a crucial one in eradicating potential rebellions at their source by eliminating those who could wield the Force against the Empire. They were a tool of terror, operating with lethal efficiency and absolute impunity. The highest rank of the Inquisitors was the Grand Inquisitor, who reported directly to Darth Vader, who serves as the Emperor's personal enforcer and the embodiment of his will. As Dark Lord of the Sith, Vader wielded immense power through the Force, making him a unique figure with Imperial structure. He held no traditional rank, he was simply Lord Vader. However, his authority was absolute and effectively superseded by that of any Grand Moff, General, or Admiral. His command derived directly from the Emperor, and for his formidable power and terrifying reputation ensured immediate blind obedience. Vader often personally led critical military operations, acted as Inquisitor of last resort, and purged perceived failures of disloyalty within the ranks, serving as both a strategic asset and psychological weapon against the Empire's enemies and its own personnel. His presence alone would command entire fleets and garrisons, often with no explicit written orders. At the very pinnacle of the Galactic Empire is the undisputed master of all of its forces and resources, was Emperor Palpatine. He possessed no military rank, no insignia to denote his position within conventional chain of command. His authority was absolute and derived his mastery of the dark side of the Force in his political acumen and seasoned control of the Republic. Every officer, every soldier, every citizen of the Empire ultimately answered to him. His word was law, his will was unchallengeable, and his power transcended any form of military or civilian designation. He was the fount from which all Imperial power flowed. These three entities, the Emperor, Darth Vader, and the Inquisitors, formed the true, unchallengeable apex of Imperial power, ensuring loyalty and dominance through fear, manipulation, and overwhelming force, well beyond any conventional ranking system. The intricate web of Imperial ranks was far more than mere organized chart. It was a reflection of the Empire's core philosophy: order, control, and absolute authority. Each rank served as precise purpose, ensuring that commands flowed seamlessly from the Emperor's throne to the most distant stormtrooper on a forgotten world. This rigid hierarchy minimalized independent thought, maximized obedience, and allowed the Empire to exert its will across the galaxy with terrifying efficiency. Understanding these ranks is crucial to comprehending the scale, the discipline, and ultimately the oppressive power of the Galactic Empire. So you made it to the end of the video, and if you have, I'm going to ask you to subscribe, comment, and like the video, because if you made it this far, I'm hoping you like it. So I guess I'll see you around.